Prepare to experience the strongest radio allowable by law. Secrets will be revealed. Myths dispelled. From the studio gym where excuses never apply, it's Superhuman Radio with your host, Carl Lenore.
Welcome back to another episode of Superhuman Radio. We're always looking for ways to build more muscle. Let's be honest. No one wants to train hard and not get results. We're going to talk about an interesting study today that looks at a multi-ingredient supplement and its effect on the events surrounding resistance training, building more muscle, protein synthetic response. Before we do that, we have to thank our title sponsor, and that is Legendary Foods, makers of the tasty pastry. And they've got so much more. People are surprised. We do a thing during the commercial break where we mention a secret word. If you hear the secret word, you're paying attention, and you email it to onair@superhumanradio.net, you'll get a free box of tasty pastries from Legendary Foods. Nothing to win. No chance involved. And Legendary Foods has been so generous that they've been sending out boxes of a bunch of stuff, tasty pastries, their seasoned almonds, their flavored nut butters, all with 0 to 1 gram of sugar per serving. Their tasty pastry is amazing. If you taste it, you will buy more because they're that good. Listen during the commercial break and email the secret word to onair@superhumanradio.net. Include your mailing address so we can send you goodies. And if you don't want to wait to try that, you can buy all this good stuff at shrnetwork.biz/legendary and use the code SHR10 to save 10% off. And what's better than free stuff? But truthfully, nothing is better than free stuff, right? Right? I feel that way. Okay. Let's get my guest on here and get the overlay set up, and here we go. Dr. Gianni Parise, how are you?
I'm good, Carl. How are you?
Why is your microphone muted? I can't hear you.
It's not muted on my end.
Hold on. Let's see something here. Yep, I see what it is. This happened yesterday, too. Bear with me 1 second. I don't know why this has been happening. Right when the show starts, we have this audio problem, and I'm not sure why it is, but let's see if we can fix it real quick. Open volume mixer. This happened yesterday on the show, and we abandoned the show because I couldn't figure out what was wrong. And it's the, here we go. There we go. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah. We sound like one of those old-fashioned cellular telephone commercials, remember? Can you hear me now? But, can I call you Gianni?
Yeah, of course, of course.
I've been doing this show for 16 years, and we talk about some really, really in-your-face science, stuff that people aren't ready for. And I swear, I believe that people try to get me off the air because we have this new suspicious problem. As soon as the show goes live, the guest's microphone dies. It happened yesterday. We had to abandon the show. It happened in testing this morning. I finally figured out what it is, so I'm prepared to fix it. But I start to think that, they don't like the things we talk about.
You've made some enemies over the years, Carl, clearly.
If you do the right thing in life, Gianni, you will make enemies. That's the goal.
That is true.
So anyway, it's great to have you on. You are at McMaster's University, a fantastic university, all things strength and conditioning and protein synthesis and training and just great stuff. And once again, we have someone from the university on the show because of a study that you just published looking at the effects of a multi-ingredient supplement on resistance training. Why this study? Haven't we looked at protein synthetic responses from all different angles already?
Oh, absolutely. You're bang on, Carl. And you're bang on when you started the program by saying, we're always looking for that edge to increase muscle mass with training. Probably more so important as we get older and we're looking to maintain muscle mass. We're looking for strategies to maximize muscle mass. But, you're right. There's been plenty of studies over the years that have focused on, protein supplementation and timing of protein supplementation and the amount of protein to take and the kind of protein. But, the reality is that we're always looking for new strategies. We're looking to tweak maybe on the margins. And I think that's what this is here is we're looking at, we know that protein's effective at supporting gains in muscle mass and the protein synthetic response. But we also know that there are other nutrients that play a significant role in supporting muscle mass and strength. And so for us, the whole point here was knowing that it's going to be critical for us to maintain muscle mass and grow muscle mass, even as we're getting older. How do we support that appropriately? It's got to be more than just protein. And sure enough, there's a whole host of ingredients that have been individually tested over the years. In this case, we talked about vitamin D and calcium and creatine, in addition to whey protein. Each of these individually has been shown to be effective at supporting gains in muscle mass with exercise, but they hadn't been put together at the time of this study and investigated as a single supplement. I think, frankly,
I was surprised to see calcium. So give the lineup again of what was in the sup. Well, no, let's talk about the design of the study, and then we can get into the particulars.
Sure. So this was a pretty simple study design. We recruited 27 people, both males and females, and we wound up with 26 that we were able to actually get data from. But in that, what we did was we split the group into two groups. It ended up being 14 and 13, but we ended up with 13 and 13 in the end. One group went on a supplement that contained 20 grams of whey protein, 2.5 grams of creatine, 300 milligrams of calcium citrate, and then 1,000 international units of vitamin D. They took that supplement twice daily. There was the placebo group, which received a isocaloric, isonitrogenous, collagen-based protein as the placebo.
So when you say it had the same nitrogen content as the whey protein, but clearly this was a collagen protein, which has far less leucine, right?
Correct. And that's, and so people typically see whey protein as the highest quality protein that you can take. And I would agree with that to some degree. Whenever you set up a study like this, one of the challenges is coming up with an appropriate placebo, right? So some people will say, well, you just give them nothing. But then, of course, the problem is that you're giving one group many more calories and much more protein in a day than the other group.
Right.
Some will say, well, use carbohydrate. Well, that's also a problem because they're still lacking the protein. They're getting the calories. You're getting more insulin. So we tried to come up with a placebo that was fair, in being isonitrogenous and isocaloric. And so these two groups then consume the supplement or the placebo twice daily for 10 weeks while going through a whole body resistance exercise routine.
How many days a week?
So it was 4 days a week, and it was split. So 2 days a week was upper body, 2 days a week was lower body.
Okay.
And it was 10 weeks. We took biopsies before the study started and biopsies at the end, and had a look at all kinds of fun stuff.
I often wonder, the guys and gals that understand what the biopsy is like before when they volunteer. It's a pretty large, depending on, like in your case, it was one of the quadricep muscles you were testing, right?
That's right. It's the side of the leg muscle.
So it's probably like at least an inch and a half, maybe a 2-inch, but it's a fairly large gauge. I want to say it's usually like a 16 gauge, something that I use to draw the testosterone out of this, but I don't put it in me, because it's like getting a core sample from the ice caps. Yeah. It goes down and it comes back with this, filled with this thing. And in this case, it's muscle tissue.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I mean, so it's much larger than a 16 gauge. In fact, it's a barrel. It's a barrel, and we go in through the skin, past the connective tissue, right into the belly of the muscle, and there's a window in it. And as you go into the belly, you apply suction. A piece of muscle comes into the needle, and then we use a blade on the end that's attached to the needle, and we cut a piece off.
Right.
And it sounds gruesome, right? Because everybody equates biopsies with things like tumors and cancer and this sort of thing. I've had myself as a student when I was coming through, I've had about 25 of these muscle biopsies in the course of my life, and they're really not that bad. I mean, it's all done under local anesthesia, but it allows us the opportunity to investigate some really interesting cellular processes that go on that we couldn't otherwise measure. So,
I know. In fact, there are a lot of, and I don't want to get off the track, but there are a lot of disorders. For instance, neuropathy.
Yeah.
We first thought neuropathy was from elevated blood sugar. Now we think neuropathy is from elevated insulin. We thought neuropathy was from glycation of the nerves. Now we think it's because the blood flow to the nerves is shut off. All of this guesswork could be taken out by doing a biopsy of somebody who has neuropathy, his calf, and then assess it. Look, put it under a microscope. Look at the cells. Oh my God, look at this. This is the problem. Biopsies, I believe, like for instance, there could be a mineral imbalance, an electrolyte imbalance component of neuropathy. Mm-hmm. But we don't know that because nobody wants to stick a needle in somebody's leg and pull out a core sample and go, oh, look, there's no potassium in that muscle tissue, you know?
Yeah, no, it is invasive, right? And so patients or subjects in this case don't always want to do this sort of thing. And clinicians are always looking to make diagnosing as easy as possible, right? I mean, they don't necessarily want to take biopsies from patients. But, I think when you look at most neurologists now, who are diagnosing issues like neuropathy, they will go to the biopsy technique to do that, right?
That's a great idea. Curious one thing, and then we'll get back into the study. When you do a biopsy of the one of the quadricep muscles, is there a period of time where that person must not train, that they got to let the muscle heal, or does it heal pretty quickly?
No, so I mean, it's a great question, right? It's so I'll tell you anecdotal information about when I've had biopsies done. But the science is that once we clip that muscle out, our muscle has muscle stem cells associated with it, satellite cells. They turn on very quickly, and they can replace that muscle within a matter of days to weeks, right? So it happens very, very quickly. In fact, my primary area of research is muscle stem cells, right? So the stuff that we do with on nutrition is really, I would say, maybe represents 10-20% of what I do. Most of my effort is on muscle stem cells.
I got a question for you at the end of our interview today. Okay, good.
Of course. Yeah,
I'm going to make a note. So, all right, let's get back to the subject at hand.
Sure. Well, sorry, Carl. Let me just say one thing,
please.
People who do get biopsies will often feel like they need to baby it. What I've always found is if I actually hop on my bike the day that I've had a biopsy and kind of do some low intensity cycling, I heal much faster. I think you're clearing blood and you're clearing inflammation out of there, right? You're
bringing repair components into the muscle, blood flow in, blood flow out. You're flushing out the bad stuff that's still in there from the biopsy. That's brilliant. Of course, that's what we should do. Yeah. Okay, so there were equal number of men and women in this study.
Yeah, right? Approximately. Yeah.
And so one group was given the sham supplement, the other one was given the supplement. Why calcium? Why is calcium in this supplement?
Yeah, so it's really interesting, right? I mean, before we started down designing this study, I mean, calcium wouldn't have been something that I would have thought twice about in the context of skeletal muscle. We know calcium's, well, I shouldn't say that.
Calcium channel.
Yeah, and it's certainly important in terms of skeletal muscle physiology.
Right.
But I wouldn't have thought there's so much calcium in skeletal muscle already. I wouldn't have thought that supplementing calcium was important. But there have been studies that have found that calcium supplementation, particularly in older adults who may be already be undergoing loss of skeletal muscle, that you can actually improve strength by supplementing calcium alone. It turns out that calcium really supports the role of vitamin D in skeletal muscle, and vitamin D in much the same way that it supports the role of vitamin D in bone, because these two kind of go hand in hand when we talk about bone physiology. But in skeletal muscle, it turns out that vitamin D and calcium work together. Calcium plays a role in some important signaling pathways that ultimately result in expression of important genes for adaptation and muscle growth. And vitamin D, the role of vitamin D in skeletal muscle really, we're continuing to learn more and more about what it does. And we're currently going through an evolution of our understanding of what vitamin D does in skeletal muscle. One of the things that you might appreciate is the fact that, they're showing that vitamin D may play a role in helping to incorporate leucine into proteins. And so there is this anabolic feature to vitamin D that's really quite interesting. But we're still in its infancy in understanding really what vitamin D is doing completely in skeletal.
So the two groups, one taking the sham supplement, one taking the special supplement, did they take it post-workout, pre-workout, or did they just take it at 10 a.m. in the morning and 6 p.m. at night? Boom, that's it.
Yeah, so as part of the study and trying to control things a little bit, we gave people were taking one dose of the supplement post-workout, and then taking the second in the evening at some time before bed. So there was always one that was taken within the hour after the workout.
Now, the 20 grams of whey protein is just a tad beneath what we have called on this show for a long time the prerequisite 30-gram dose, because then there's 3 grams of leucine or 2.7 grams of leucine, and that seems to be the magic in turning on the anabolic protein synthetic response to feeding. This was slightly below. Is that why leucine was included as a free-form amino acid?
Yeah, so one of the reasons why we kept it at 20 grams was because we were enriching the supplement with 2 grams of leucine. So we knew that we would be able to stimulate, that protein synthetic response with the leucine. And remember that they were taking this twice a day. So the supplement alone was giving them 40 grams of whey in the course of the day, in addition to whatever they ate as part of their regular diet. So they were getting enough protein for sure in the course of the day, and they were getting the 2 grams of leucine.
Did they have to keep a diary on how they ate around the supplementation, what they ate, or was there advice like don't change the way you eat or start doing this?
Yeah, that's all. So our advice always when we run one of these studies is to not change your dietary habits during the course of the study. Sometimes it happens organically, right? Because as people begin to take 40 grams of protein a day, they organically start to down regulate how much protein they intake naturally.
Satiety kicks in, sure.
Right. So, but we try to get people to stick to their normal dietary habits and not change anything in the course of the study. And we do collect diet records before and after the study to see if there has been a significant change during the course.
Did you see a shift in caloric intake on these people?
No, surprisingly, they adapted quite well. So they were taking their caloric intake was similar pre and post training. So there was no significant.
Now, was this a scoopable powder? Because you had creatine in it as well, right?
No, so we had these prepackaged by a company. So they came in envelopes, and the envelope contained everything you needed in that dose. So
the calcium and the vitamin D were a tablet or capsule caplet size.
That's right. They were incorporated. Yeah.
Okay. And did you look at them throughout the study or just the beginning and the end?
We looked at them just in the beginning of the end. Now we strength test them throughout the protocol to make sure that they're adapting appropriately. So we adjust their weights week to week throughout the training program to make sure that it is progressive and they're getting stronger. But other than that, all of the heavy lifting in terms of the testing was done before training and then again after training.
And boy, I have so many questions. I just want to. I'm trying to incorporate a couple things together. No problem. With these individuals, you strength test them in the beginning and at the end of the study. Did muscle size change accompany or correlate with strength changes?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So let me just step back for a second. Probably the most important finding in the study is that the supplement group increased lean body mass more so than the placebo group. So they both exercise trained and they both gained lean body mass as a result of training, but the supplement group gained significantly more lean body mass than the placebo group.
What's significant? Couple kilograms?
In this case, a couple kilograms. Yeah. So I mean, that's not
10 weeks. That's good. Now, were these training naive? Were they newbies or were they already existing trainees?
Yeah. So they're what we would call recreationally active. So they're not engaged in a regular training program, but they're not couch potatoes either, right? These are people who might play tennis and do recreational things, but they're not engaged in a regular resistance exercise training program.
So we would expect to see. To somebody like this, we would expect to see gains early on that we see in all, for lack of better terms, newbies who to the resistance training game. But still, the placebo group didn't see the same level of gains as the supplementation group.
Yeah, that's right. So we saw about a couple kilograms in the placebo group and about 4 kilograms in the supplement group. So I mean, it's still a pretty impressive amount of gain over that 10-week period, right?
Now, and did you do Dexa? How did you know it was all lean body mass?
Yeah, so we did Dexa. Dexa, we did Dexa, and that's how we calculate our lean body mass. And we looked at this in a couple of different ways. We also looked at muscle fiber cross-sectional area, and this is where we basically take the biopsy, we do thin slices, look at it microscopically, and actually measure the size of the fiber, the individual fibers. And in that case, our supplement group, their fiber cross-sectional area for type 2 fibers significantly increased more so than it did in the placebo group.
So when you say increased, there were more fibers, right? We just did this show talking about muscle size, and the magic is that there's more of these cross fibers, I guess they call them.
Yeah, so not more fibers. You almost never see that. So what you see though are larger fibers. So each individual fiber got significantly bigger in the supplement group than in the placebo group. Okay. So that was sort of, that was great validation for the DEXA measurements, right? Because we're saying that, there's an increase in lean body mass, but if we have a look at the fibers themselves, are they actually bigger? And they were. So we saw that the supplement allowed for a larger increase in fiber cross-sectional area. We also looked at ultrasound, looking at muscle thickness. And this is a newer way to measure an increase in muscle size. And in this case as well, in the biceps in particular, we were able to measure a significantly greater increase in muscle thickness as compared to the placebo group. So we had multiple measures which all showed that there was an increase in muscle protein associated with the supplement than with the placebo.
I look at this supplement, I'm expecting you to be coming out with a product, but the reality is anybody could assemble this supplement in their kitchen, at their kitchen table.
Oh, absolutely. It's a very simple supplement, and there is a product, full disclosure, that has been released by a company that contains these ingredients. But absolutely, this is something you can put together.
I mean, anybody can take whey protein, 300 milligrams of calcium, 2 grams of leucine. How much vitamin D? 1,000 IUs, nothing. I mean, not a lot. And
that was the whole point, Carl. That was the whole point, right? Was to come up with something that was simple, that people can adopt easily and put it together themselves, right? I mean, that's what we're trying to do is get the information out there. How do we best support
20 years ago, when creatine monohydrate was all the rage, we had companies out there selling 5-gallon tubs of powder. It was 80% dextrose, because so back in the day, for those of you who have not been around long enough, the anabolic window potion was 40 grams of whey protein, 60 grams of dextrose, and alpha lipoic acid, 100 milligrams of alpha lipoic acid. This is before we even knew about the R form of alpha lipoic acid. And that was magic because the alpha lipoic acid was insulin mimetic, and it forced all the sugar into the muscles and people were doing that and using it and seeing good results. But when you bought this big tub, it was like $60 for like 30 servings. And then people realized, you could buy dextrose at your local health food store, Bob Redbud, a whole 2-pound bag for $1. And you can get alpha lipoic acid at Kroger's or GNC anywhere on the shelf, and then buy your favorite whey protein and just take them together and no one was buying those products anymore because we were making it at our kitchen table. So this is fantastic. This is good news. I like this.
And to that creatine, we ran a number of creatine studies, as you say, 20 some odd years ago. We ran some of the first ones on resistance exercise training years ago. And it's interesting now when I look back at it, right? Because we had these strategies where you needed 20 grams of creatine as a loading phase, and then every day you needed 5 grams of creatine, right? None of that's really true anymore, right? I mean, we know that you could take 2 to 2.5 grams of creatine a day, and at the end of 4 weeks, you're going to be the same level as you were with the loading phase and the 5 grams.
And if you were one of the people who got GI distress from creatine, you don't get it with 2 grams.
That's right.
And if you were one of the people who saw overflow where you ended up with a lot of sub-Q water, you don't see that if you just take 2 grams. And for those people out there worried about high levels of creatine hurting their kidneys, you don't see that with 2 grams, but the 20 grams a day loading phase for 5 days, a lot of people didn't do well with that.
Yeah. I mean, I would say there's still little evidence to support any sort of kidney issues with 20-gram loading dose, right?
But if somebody tells you that, I mean, how much creatine is in a pound of steak? Nobody talks about that.
That's right. So. It's right. And it's funny because I have people all the time reaching out to me to say, how much creatine should I take? And the sad thing about it, Carl, is that despite knowing the science and saying to somebody, you don't need more than 2 grams a day, 2 to 2.5 grams a day is all you need, they'll say, but the package says I should be taking 5 or grams a day, and there should be a loading phase. And it's like, well, you're wasting a lot of money, and you could listen to the manufacturers or you could listen to the science. People sadly still listen to the manufacturers.
So at the end of the 10-week run, one group saw an increase. One group saw almost double the increase with the supplement. Yeah. But this doesn't replace food, right? We still have the anabolic effect of feeding.
Absolutely. And it's a great point, Carl. And I think, the reality is if people ate well-balanced diets, and at the right times, some might argue, I don't know that there's really any need for supplementation in a young, healthy population.
Right.
That changes, of course, as we get older.
Big time. Right. Let's be honest, right? So I've been on testosterone for a long, long time, even before it was called HRT.
Right.
But I wouldn't ever be able to build and maintain the muscle I do at 63 if my hormones weren't straightened out. I'd be withering away like most guys.
Yeah. So it's funny that you say this because I've queried for a long time, why isn't testosterone replacement or treatment or whatever you want to call it a strategy for all aging men? Listen, that extra muscle mass you're going to carry into your 70s and 80s is going to serve you well.
Right.
As far as overall health and longevity goes.
We talked about a show. Well, we've talked about several shows. One of the first interviews I did about how strength and longevity correlate was in 2006 when the California VA hospital did a big study. It was like 16,000 men, and they followed them over 10 years. And they measured leg strength in a leg press. And the men who were the strongest at the beginning of the study and remained the strongest through the study lived to the end of the study. The guys who were the weakest at the beginning of the study and progressively got weaker and weaker, they died during the study. So that was the first peek into why the old adage, the strong live long, only the strong survive, is true. You got to think of us as any other organism. You look at a bacteria, we say, oh, you need a stronger antibiotic because it's resistant. Resistant. It's stronger. We are the same thing. We are an organism. We're a multi-celled organism, but still. So the stronger you are, the more you can resist the perils of living. And now, now there's evidence that the men who maintain muscle mass to the age 65 and women to 60 have a longer life.
Mm-hmm. And Carl, the important thing is that it's indisputable. Like, this is fact. This isn't theory. I mean, there's lots of data now demonstrating that there's correlations between strength and longevity. And also, importantly, morbidity, right? So we know that
frailty.
That's right.
How many studies are out there that have now identified frailty as the number one threat to living long?
It's absolutely. And you know, the thing that we always forget to talk about when this issue comes up is, what is the impact to one's mental health when they're not dependent on a caregiver, when they're not institutionalized, when they're not at risk of falling every time they stand up? I mean, this is heavy stuff, right? I mean, I think it's really important to realize that the importance of muscle mass can't be underestimated. It's far greater than anyone gives.
And the medical orthodoxy completely ignores it. Yep. They ignore it. They have no suggestions for people. Then it's almost like they don't want to talk about it, because then people realize, oh, I can stay healthy and live a long life if I just start lifting weight and building muscle. No, because we've been labeled meatheads for 100 years. But if you go back in time to the Roman Empire, to the Greeks, they cherished muscle. They cherished strength. Do you know that Eugene Sandow, the guy who is the statue for the Mr. Olympia, was nominated as a health minister by King Edward of England because he looked at this guy and said, this guy knows what the people here need to know. The doctors, they couldn't make you healthy, and they still can't. They really can't. They can rescue you from dying from your dozens of years of bad decisions, but they can't reverse your illness and make you healthy. They never do. But those of us who have embraced physical culture, I saved my own life. I'd be dead right now if I didn't find weightlifting. I was 330 pounds. I had a dysrhythmia in my heart. I was ready to die. They wanted to put a pacemaker in me 20 years ago. And I learned about lifting heavy weight and how it remodels the heart, makes the pump stronger. And I dedicated myself to that. And that's the reason I'm here right now. I would be absolutely be dead right now if I stayed on that path.
Yeah. You know, I mean, sadly, modern medicine doesn't look at exercise as a therapeutic tool, right? They're always going to look at big pharma for direction. We as physiologists, certainly we try all the time to say, look, your best bet here is to start exercising and exercise regularly. And that will help you. Now, I'm not suggesting that exercise can replace every drug you may need for whatever ailment you have. Not at all. In fact, medicine and big pharma play a really important role in helping people. But from a preventative perspective, exercising regularly can do wonders.
No matter what disease you have, you will fare better if you work out. You'll Absolutely. Be able to, just because the other thing that exercise does is it creates mental strength, and it takes mental strength to get old. Trust me. Your body aches, it hurts. When you've lifted heavy weights, you learn how to control pain. That comes back to you when, with age, maybe your spine has developed a little arthritis, and every time you stand up, oh, it hurts. It doesn't bother you if you're used to putting 700 pounds on your back. It's like, oh yeah, it hurts. I'm going to stand up now. Other people, they cave in. They go, oh, I need something. The pain. So there is so much value in weightlifting as a therapeutic, but doctors will not talk to you about it. And the truth of the matter is, many of us go to doctors that are unhealthy themselves. Would you go to a mechanic who every time you go to his shop, you say, hey, where's Gianni? Oh, his car broke down again. Why am I bringing my car to this guy if he can't even keep his own car running? Right?
No, it's fair. It's fair. Yeah.
Choose your doctors wisely. Look, let's take a quick commercial break. If you have questions or comments, we'll get to them all in this next segment. Stay tuned. Is there something interfering with your happiness or ability to achieve your goals? BetterHelp can help. They will assess your needs and match you with a licensed therapist. This is not a self-help or crisis line. It's professional counseling done securely online. They have a broad range of experts and are available worldwide without having to wait in an uncomfortable waiting room. Get the help you need and start living a happier life today. Go to shrnetwork.biz/betterhelp. That's better, HELP, and receive 10% off your first month of counseling when you use the code SHR. I would easily say that I am the hugest proponent you will ever meet to doing anything that will improve the quality of my sleep. And that's because sleep is linked to just about every metabolic disorder we see in our population today. One of the easiest things you can do to improve the quality of your sleep is to get a pillow that can be shaped into the exact form factor that allows you to get your best night's sleep. And that is MyPillow. I've been sleeping with MyPillow for a few years now, and I can tell you that when I have to travel and stay in hotels, I don't get a good night's sleep because I don't have MyPillow with me. Right now, you can save up to 60% off of everything offered to improve the quality of your sleep at shrnetwork.biz/mypillow when you use the code SHR. Or you can call toll-free 800-889-4938. And remember to use code SHR to save up to 60% off of everything at their website. I need to share with you all a revolutionary new wearable technology called HAPB. HAPB allows you to enjoy the effects of caffeine, alcohol, nicotine, melatonin, and muscle relaxants without actually ingesting anything. Yes, really. They figured out the unique magnetic signature of each of these molecules and recorded them. Just put the HAPB on, choose the signal you want, and it starts projecting the magnetic signature of that molecule that you choose, like coffee for feeling alert. Go to hapb.com/SHR. That's HAPBEE.com/SHR to learn more and unlock an $80 discount exclusively for the Superhuman Radio listeners. Creatine. Our lifestyle today is very different from what it's naturally supposed to be. The effects of this can be seen in the exponential increase in chronic pain in our population. So the question should be, how can we reprogram our body and how can we tap into the innate intelligence of our body? Tau Patch is a patented nanotechnology device that sends photons of coherent therapeutic light into specific points on your body. These photons are similar to the ones your cells use to communicate with each other. They stimulate your central nervous system and streamline its communication with the rest of the body. Get your Tau Patch today by visiting shrnetwork.biz/Tau Patch. That's TAOPATCH, and save 10% using code SHR. Redcon One's new BAR bar is the ultimate soft-baked protein-packed snack bar, powered by peanut butter. Perfect for while on the go to help curb hunger or sneaky sweet tooth cravings. With 20 grams of protein, use as a meal replacement bar or when you're in need of a high-protein snack. Eat a Redcon One bar as a midday snack or for fuel before an intense training session. Go to shrnetwork.biz/Redcon One and use the code SHR25 and save 25% off these delicious bars today. Every day, there's a new wellness trend. Eat that, do this, avoid those. How do you know where to start or who to trust? Inside Tracker helps you cut through the noise by analyzing your blood, your DNA, your lifestyle, and your fitness tracker to provide you with a science-backed, trackable action plan on how to live, age, and perform better. Personalized, one-size-fits-one recommendations to help you optimize you. For a limited time, Inside Tracker is offering Superhuman Radio listeners 25% off the entire store. Go to shrnetwork.biz/Inside Tracker, INSIDETRACKER, to save 25% off. Change begins on the inside.
Spit that out right now. This is the Superhuman Channel.
Welcome back. We're talking with Dr. Gianni Parise from McMaster University, our neighbors to the north. Always, these guys are on the bleeding edge all the time when it comes to building muscle and building strength. So, obviously, anybody could make this supplement on their kitchen table, like we talked about. Is more better? You think if you took this 3 times a day instead of 2? You think if you took larger doses of whey protein and calcium? It's a 300 milligram dose of calcium twice a day. That's almost the upper end of the recommended supplement level of 1,000 milligrams a day.
Right.
But do you think more is better in this case?
No. In fact, I think almost never is more better. Right. I mean, I think this is where we spend a lot of time and a lot of years identifying, the optimal levels of things. And as you said earlier, that 20 to 30 grams of whey appears to be sort of the optimal dose. Above that, you don't get any more stimulation of protein synthesis. So no, I don't think it would be. I think we've provided the optimal volume of for each of these ingredients.
You have to take I take 5,000 units of vitamin D a day. I don't take calcium. I take magnesium. I'm off creatine right now, but I'm about to start using it again. I take off every now and then just for a little while.
Right.
I use whey protein every day, generally 50 grams a sitting. Do I have to take them all same time, or if I'm getting them throughout the day and getting these levels, I should be good?
Yeah, no, I think it's just making sure you're getting them throughout the day. The timing at this point appears irrelevant. And to be honest with you, and you probably know this, the timing, even in terms of protein intake, is becoming less relevant. I think for a long time, we thought, we got to take it within a 30-minute anabolic window.
Window.
And now there's all sorts of analyses showing actually you just got to make sure you're getting the right amount in the course of a day, and that'll support gains in muscle mass.
Dr. Mauro Di Pasquale, you know who he is, right?
Yeah.
He's a Canadian, brilliant guy. He came on my show probably 8 or 10 years ago and talked about the fallacy of the anabolic window, and he showed that the thing that shuts the anabolic window is insulin.
Right.
Like the contrary to what all bodybuilders think. And he said, hey, if you want the anabolic window to last till tomorrow, it will. You'll still replenish glycogen, but eat very low carb. And It goes on forever. And we were shutting it with that 60 grams of dextrose. We were shutting the window. That's why it was a window. Without that, it's not a window. It's open all the time.
Right. Yeah. No, it's very true. Right. And I think my colleague Stu Phillips has recently put out a meta-analysis showing that really it's just the amount of protein that you're getting in a day that really matters. It doesn't really matter when you take it.
Yeah.
Which is sort of contrary to historically what we.
But that fits nicely into the context of caloric intake, right? We've learned that it's not the caloric intake on a day-to-day basis that really matters. It's the net for the week. So if you focus on the day-to-day basis, if you need $70 by the end of the week and you're working 7 days, you got to make $10 a day. Right. But the real target is the 70. And we know now, and this is the problem with intermittent fasting. I want to put this comment up. Dean Paulson is a longtime friend of the show. He said that intermittent fasting is absurd, especially for the older people. I'm pretty sure it made me pre-diabetic. Pounding that much food in a short period of time can't be healthy, and all the protein spikes missed. So I have to agree with him to a degree, with one caveat. The problem with intermittent fasting is that people eat like, you're Italian, they eat like Gavone for 8 hours a day, right? They're like, I can eat everything I want for the next 8 hours. I'm going to eat chocolate cake and everything. I'm just going to keep stuffing my face. My stomach is full, but I'm going to keep eating because if I don't eat everything now, I'm not going to be able to eat it later because I'm going to be fasting. The magic to intermittent fasting is to fast 12 to 16 hours, which from an evolutionary perspective, we would have done anyway. We were in caves, we were sleeping. We got up in the morning, we started looking for food. Maybe nuts and berries were left over from the night before, but we had to go out and find food.
Yeah.
But the big thing is what you choose to break your fast is very, very important. If you become a glutton for 8 hours a day, you're right. Intermittent fasting is going to make you diabetic. But if you're conservative about what you eat, okay, I'm going to have egg whites and this half of a Ezekiel muffin, and I'm going to have a sensible lunch, and I'm going to have a sensible during the hours. Intermittent fasting can work. The problem is intermittent fasting has been sold to the public under the guise that you can be a pig for 8 hours a day as long as you're not eating the rest of the time. That's the problem. But I do agree with him on that one.
Yeah, I agree with you as well, Carl. And I think that is the problem, is that people don't understand what they're doing. And so, yeah, I've got this 8-hour window to eat. They'll consume 5,000 calories in that 8-hour window, right? I mean, it is absurd.
So anytime you talk about vitamin D, the discussion about K2 comes in, and especially with calcium. What do you think that could K2 be added to this supplement blend?
Well, I don't even know what K2 is.
So K2 is found in green leafy vegetables, and we only need like 100 micrograms a day or 60. It's like some minuscule amount that you can actually get from diet, no problem.
Right.
But in order for vitamin D supplements to differentiate themselves, because vitamin D3 is a commodity, there's no way to sell it expensively when everybody has a D3 out there. So what they started to do is they started to add K2 to D, because orally administered D3 can potentially cause calcium uptake by soft tissue and also by unwanted tissue, aortic tissue. So early on, people were saying, if you're going to take big doses of D, you got to take K2. This is only true in oral D, not if you lay in the sun, not because all that other stuff goes away. So anytime you talk about taking vitamin D and calcium, a lot of clinicians say, well, you got to take K2 to ward off unwanted calcification. Right.
So, I mean, again, this is not an area that I'm particularly familiar with. I would bet that there's almost no research on this. And so I would stay away from anything that where you're not getting some expert guidance on. So to me, I wouldn't start mixing and matching until we have some data to support it, right?
Just eat broccoli rabi. There's a lot of eat broccoli rabi. I love broccoli rabi. I bet you do too, right?
Of course.
Yeah. So eat kale. Eat anything green. There's K2 in it. Nuts. Cashews have the highest degree of K2. Eat cashews. You don't need a supplement to get K2. That's what I've discovered. I don't take a K2 supplement, but I do eat a lot of foods that contain K2. That would be my suggestion, Sean. Let's see who else we got here. So I can't see who this is because they have security turned on their Facebook account, but it says, I get GI issues with any grams of mono. So many free-form amino acids cause something called osmotic diarrhea. I would suggest you take more water with your creatine. And here's why. When they did the research on arginine and its ability to blunt somatostatin and allow growth hormone to be produced, the doses that were needed to have this effect were like 20 grams, one dose. Everybody got diarrhea because when you have that amount of amino acids in your gut, the intestines, it actually attracts water into the intestines to help carry this cement through your gut. So if you take enough water with your creatine, you probably won't get the GI issues. That's my prediction. And you may have to drink a half a liter of water with it. I mean, you may be just more sensitive to it than other people. What do you think?
I think there is also the possibility that it just may not agree with them. And that, this happens, right? I mean, we see this in almost every one of our studies where everybody's good, but there's always that one person, no matter what we do, they end up with GI distress and either end up dropping out of the study. That's usually what ends up happening. It doesn't happen a lot, but there always is, that individual who just, no matter what strategy you take, they just have this sensitivity to it. He may be one of them.
Dean Paulson asked me if I monitor potassium levels. So it's hard to, everybody's so afraid of potassium. It's hard to hit your potassium intake requirements today. We shouldn't be that afraid of potassium. In large doses, it can change the rhythm of the heart because they use potassium actually to slow the heart and stop the heart sometimes during surgeries. But it's got to be a fairly large dose. But I don't monitor it. But, so about, 8 or 10 years ago, I started thinking about coming up with a supplement blend for electrolytes. And when you look at sweat, what are we really trying to do with minerals? We're just trying to make sure that there's enough in our body. And if you're like me, you sit in the sauna 3, 4, 5 times a week, you train, you sweat, you lose a lot. But here's what a liter of sweat looks like. There are 0.9 grams of sodium, the biggest thing that you sweat out. 0.2 grams per liter of potassium, 0.015 grams per liter of calcium, and the smallest amount, 0.0013 grams per liter of magnesium. The things that we lose the most of are sodium and potassium. I think that it's reasonable to just use, sodium chloride, sodium bicarbonate. These are 2 great things to use in electrolyte blends. And get yourself some potassium tablets. They say that they're 500 milligrams of potassium, but actually there's only 99 milligrams of elemental potassium. Throw one of those in your water, shake it up, and drink it down. That's it. You're done. There's no magic to this. There really isn't. Any thoughts on electrolyte blends?
Yeah. So, I've never been a huge fan of monitoring your, sodium, potassium levels. For me, in every one of these electrolyte drinks, whether it's Gatorade or BioSteel or any one of these things, they're designed based on what you lose when you sweat, right? They're designed based on your sodium and potassium levels as you're sweating to replace what you've lost. So I wouldn't overthink this, frankly. I mean, I think I'm kind of with you on this, Carl. I mean, if you've got an electrolyte blend, pop it into your water, you're good. I mean, we have so much potassium floating around in our system that, to me, it's not something to focus on.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah.
Let's
see here. We have a couple more. Just jumping in here, Sean. Aren't avocados high in potassium? I think avocados are high in potassium, magnesium. They're a wonderful thing to eat. I love avocados. They may be. Okay, so I want to finish up with this study. Then I want to ask you some questions about satellite stem cells.
Sure.
So, what would you hope that lay people and clinicians take away from your research?
So, I mean, it's a great question. And for me, I think, I think the one thing to take home from this is that diet matters, right? I mean, we're showing here you can almost double the amount of lean body mass you gain with an optimized diet. Oftentimes you talk to somebody who's in the gym, they work out every day, but their diet's garbage. You never see the results.
Right? They never change. Yeah.
Right. And they don't get the gains they're looking for. They don't get the result they're looking for. And so I think this study really nicely demonstrates that if you optimize your diet, you can really optimize the gains that you generate from a regular exercise program. And so to me, that's the message. I mean, diet matters and pay attention to it, particularly if you're looking to use exercise to get healthy.
And was there anything in this study that jumped out at you where you went, wow, I did not expect that?
I'd say the one outcome that I think surprised us a little bit is that we initially anyway was that we didn't see the gains in strength that you would expect when you see those kinds of gains in mass. So as I said, we almost doubled the amount of lean body mass with the supplement, but we didn't see significant differences in strength gained during that training period. It's important to recognize that when you do these kinds of studies, right? I mean, going and doing, a chest press to look at strength gains or a leg press, those are pretty gross measures, right? And there's a lot of variability around those measures. Mm-hmm. The reality is we're probably just significantly underpowered to be able to measure changes in strength between the two groups. So I think in retrospect, when we look back at it, it doesn't surprise me, but certainly in the moment, I was thinking, how are we seeing these increases in lean body mass, increases in fiber size, yet we're not seeing, a commensurate increase in strength in the supplement group.
Part of it could be neural inhibition. So I did a show a long time ago about people who grunt, right? And it's actually called vocal disinhibition. And to be strong, you have to unlock parts of you to go for it. And this is seen as aggression. And there are a lot of people who just don't turn that on. Vocal disinhibition, we saw a 5% increase in strength in trained athletes, those who grunted and those who didn't. And that's when it became very apparent to me that there's a social aspect of strength. Strength is not necessarily seen as a positive, right? A lot of people think that strong people are scary, and we all want to be civilized. And I don't know if I'm explaining this the right way, but I think it takes a lot of exhibitionism to be strong today. When you're in the gym and you're deadlifting and you may shit your pants while you're pulling this weight today, but you don't care, that's a different human being that somebody who's going, give me everything you got. And they're like, no, I'll shit my pants. I can't do that. No, I'm being sincere. So I don't think I think that you learn to be strong. Even with big muscles, you learn to activate them. You learn what it takes, and you learn to be willing to put yourself out there and look strong. Because when you look at the likes on a guy who's squatting, I don't know, 900 pounds. I was watching a guy this morning squatting 900 pounds. Better yet, I was watching a girl clean and press 300 pounds over her head. And I'm going to be vulgar here. And she had like 600 likes. But then there's this other girl who's clapping her ass cheeks, and she's got 60,000 likes. So, it's a lot of people in our society don't appreciate strength. And maybe it's because it makes them feel inadequate. And I think a lot of us are sensitive to that. So turning on strength is a separate thing than being strong. This is my opinion.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting point. And I think, to your point, lots of people don't understand their own limits, right? Most people in the gym can do more than they're doing. They think they're doing what they can do, but there's always another gear that can be achieved. And that's where the grunting and all that comes into play, right? I mean, they're hitting another level. Lots of people don't even recognize that there is another level.
All right.
So
yeah, if you're not pulling a muscle off the bone once in a blue moon, you're not pushing it hard. I know that sounds completely stupid, right? Like, Carl, but if you're challenging yourself, you're going to get injured. That's the bottom line. If you're a UFC fighter and you're doing as best as you can, you're going to get your clock cleaned once in a while.
Yeah.
That's it. And those of us who've been training for a long time, we know. I mean, I've had lots of evulsions and hamstring connections and all that. Well, yeah, I mean, you don't know if you can't pull 650 pounds until you try it. I mean, obviously you work up to it over years, decades, and then you pull it and you snap something, you go up, that was my limit, but that's how you find your limit. That's it. So, okay, now I want to talk about one other thing with you.
Yeah.
Hyperplasia. It's magic. Hyperplasia is the formation of new muscle fibers. Satellite cells become fibers. And this type of hypertrophy, if you will, is different than muscle fibers getting bigger and fuller and more fibers in them and thicker fibers. This is a completely new muscle fiber forming from scratch. How, other than drugs, because trenbolone has been shown to cause hyperplasia. Trenbolone has been shown to cause hyperplasia in cows. We assume it's doing it in people too when they use it. Is there any way to turn hyperplasia on except being an infant and having neonatal genes switched on?
Yeah, no. So, the short answer is that hyperplasia has almost never been observed in response to physiological stimulus like resistance exercise training. I mean, in fact, we don't even talk, as physiologists, we don't even really talk about hyperplasia in humans as something that happens. Now, does that mean it doesn't happen? No. I think, what it may mean is that we don't have the techniques that are sensitive enough to measure hyperplasia. But by and large, the vast majority of hypertrophy is happening because existing fibers are getting bigger. And that's happening because, one, you're stimulating protein synthesis, but two, you're donating new nuclei to existing fibers by these stem cells that are fusing with them. So, I mean, hyperplasia, you're right. In certain situations and in certain species, great example is myostatin, right? You look at these myostatin animals, they clearly have hyperplasia and significant. But typically it's not something we've really ever been able to observe in humans.
And the pursuit of myostatin inhibition is a futile one for several reasons. But most importantly, even if it works for you, you don't get stronger. In fact, there's evidence that the muscles become compromised and don't display the strength that they should. And soft tissue becomes compromised, and you snap things. So I say, I was all into myostatin inhibition a decade more ago, and I was using things and injecting stuff. And then I had a guy on from State University of New York, and they did a fantastic study. And they showed that if myostatin is not inhibited 94% continuously, you see no changes to mature muscle. We keep looking at animals that were born myostatin null, like Belgian blue bulls or some of these whippets. And we want to look like, well, it's a lot harder to take a mature muscle and do those things with it. And once you stop taking the myostatin inhibitor, your muscles go back to the way they were before. So it's in my humble opinion, it's a futile attempt.
Well, and not to mention that no one has truly successfully brought a myostatin inhibitor to market for human consumption, right? I mean, There's all kinds of nutraceutical sort of approaches. None of them really work, right? So
there was one that worked, but it got caught up between partners. You know which one I'm going to talk about?
No, let me know go on. I'll let you know if it's similar.
So there was a guy named Rick Green in Texas who got the FDA to approve him to take fertilized chicken eggs and freeze dry the yolks and powder them. Because fertilized chicken eggs have a very, very, very high degree of follistatin. Mm-hmm. And follistatin is even more anabolic than a myostatin inhibitor. That when Se-Jin Lee worked on this project, he had the myostatin knockout rodents, and then he had the follistatin overproducing rodents. The follistatin overproduced, so the myostatin knockout rodents were like Frankenstein. They were muscular and big. They looked so freaky. But the follistatin overproducing rodents made them look like little mice. They were like gargantuan. And so Rick Green came to market with an egg yolk based protein powder, very high in fat, but it was mass spec and had a lot of follistatin. And I was using it, and I was seeing changes in my body that I attributed to it. But then the partners got into a fight, and this guy wanted this, and that guy wanted, and then it just went away. But it's still possible for someone to produce it because the FDA approved it for them. They did not have to heat pasteurize it. That was the magic. They were able to produce it by using some sort of irradiation process. So the follistatin was not denatured, but that one is the one that I tried, and I thought it was working for me.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I mean, there's still a lot of interest in the whole myostatin follistatin story, right? I mean, and going back to the stem cell piece, we know that we did the work ourselves that almost 90% of all your muscle stem cells are highly expressing myostatin at rest. And what's interesting is once you go in and you do a heavy bout of resistance exercise, over the course of time, what you see is fewer and fewer of those stem cells expressing myostatin. So it's almost like myostatin is holding them in an inactive state. And then once you give that stimulus of exercise, it starts to release those muscle stem cells, and those stem cells can.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's very, very cool stuff. And we published that a few years back in the FASIB journal. But it's clearly involved in the anabolic process. There's no doubt about that. How to develop something that works and that you can control remains a mystery.
And that's the thing, control, because we don't know what taking a normal human being and trying to elicit the same results as a myostatin null will do to the heart or other organs or anything else. Gianni, will you come back on the show again?
I would love to. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, we'll publish another paper, man. Come on.
Okay, I'm working on it.
Okay. All right, listen, it's been a pleasure having you here. Lots of fun. Thank you for being here today.
Thanks, Charles. Great. Appreciate it.
Take care. We're going to take one quick commercial break. When we come back, I want to talk about continuous glucose monitors. Everybody thinks that they're for diabetics. I don't think so. I think they're for you and me, and I'm going to tell you why. Okay, stay tuned. We shall return. If there is one mineral you should be worried about not getting enough of, it's magnesium. Magnesium is the body's master mineral, powering over 300 critical reactions, including detoxification, fat metabolism, energy, and even digestion is influenced by the presence of magnesium. That's why I'm so excited to tell you about a new magnesium product I've been taking now called Magnesium Breakthrough. It's the ultimate magnesium supplement, easily the best I've ever seen or experienced. With all 7 forms of magnesium, I was able to arrange an amazing deal for my audience, and I guarantee it's the best deal available on this product. Seriously, with volume discounts combined with our custom 10% coupon code SHR10, you can save up to 40% off select packages of Magnesium Breakthrough. And I promise that this deal is only available on this specific website, magbreakthrough.com/SHR. You won't find that deal on Amazon or even on the company's own website. Go to magbreakthrough.com/SHR and use code SHR10 to save up to 40% off select packages of Magnesium Breakthrough. Remember those rectangular toaster pastries you used to love when you were a kid? Well, Legendary Foods has just made them better. The new cake-style tasty pastry is like nothing you've ever had before. With 20 grams of high-quality protein and less than 1 gram of sugar, you'll feel like you're cheating, but you're not. Go to shrnetwork.biz/legendary and use the code SHR10 to save 10% off your purchase of tasty pastries. Now available in cookies and cream, red velvet cake, birthday cake, blueberry, strawberry, brown sugar cinnamon, and hot fudge sundae. Go to shrnetwork.biz/legendary and use code SHR10 today. Being superhuman means being conscientious about the choices we make. White Oak Pastures is superhuman when it comes to raising livestock. They're committed to animal welfare, land regeneration, and rural revival. They responsibly manage the entire process from the pasture to your doorstep. High quality, pasture raised, great tasting meat from a farm you can trust. Full nose to tail selections. They even have options for your pet. Go to shrnetwork.biz/white oak and use the code superhuman to save 10% off your entire first order. Creatine.
New Mass Pro Synthogen X2 just upped its own legendary game. To distance itself even further from the rest of the pack, Synthogen X2 now has double the key active ingredients. If you've ever wondered what steroid-like recovery feels like, Synthogen X2 delivers. See why others compare it favorably to powerful bodybuilding drugs at synthogen.com. Mass Pro Synthogen. When you train with it, you'll gain with it.
Hey, this is Carl Lenore. Superhuman Radio is the longest running health, fitness, and anti-aging podcast in the world, going into our 16th year of continuous production. If you have a product that you think would appeal to the superhuman nation, we can get you on the air quickly and inexpensively to help promote your brand. Join the ranks of some of the largest and most successful companies in the world who know how great it is to be affiliated with Superhuman Radio. Contact Dan Kapitsky today. That's DAN.KOPITZKE at superhumanradio.net to learn more. Knoll Creek Hemp Company's Delta 8 soft chews are the premier Delta 8 product on the market today. Knoll Creek's Delta 8 is produced from high-quality hemp-derived CBD oil, and soft chews are manufactured using proprietary nano-emulsification technique that ensures the Delta 8 soft chew will timely deliver the desired effects cleanly and consistently from piece to piece. In a space where at least 70% of the products fail to meet label claims and where most users of conventional hemp products are left disappointed, Knoll Creek's Delta 8 soft chews are a product you can trust. Visit shrnetwork.biz/delta8. That's DELTA and the number 8 and use the code SHR20 to get 20% off your first order today.
This is the Superhuman Channel, where we use oxygen for the power of good.
Hey, welcome back. So, continuous glucose monitors have been around for a short time now and predominantly sold to people with type 2 diabetes because it allows them to get a glimpse into a 24-hour blood sugar level where it spikes and where it drops and so on and so forth. The sad part is most people who have diabetes really don't care. They wear it. They watch their blood sugar go up all the time, but they don't use that to determine how they should eat better. Maybe they need better sleep. They don't look at trends. Oh, wow, I didn't sleep last night. My blood sugar's all over the place today. I got a good sleep last night and my blood sugar is pretty stable. Because you have to not even care about that to become diabetic. Because don't forget, they've been seeing the doctor who knows how many years. Their blood sugar has been rising. They've been diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. They're on metformin. They're on their way to get on insulin. They really don't care. They're not going to change their life. They believe that their enjoyment of donuts and other crap is deserving. They don't have to worry about it. They don't care. They really do. Because otherwise, as soon as their doctor told them your blood sugar is creeping up, they know what they're eating that's bad. They don't have to see a dietitian, but they would have maybe gone to see a dietitian and says, look, I'm getting diabetic. And the dietitian would have had them cut back their intake of carbohydrates. But the other side of this is that the medical orthodoxy tells them, oh, you can still eat carbs. Don't worry about it. You know, I mean, if you look at a diet book for diabetics, it usually has cake and brownies on the cover. Why? Because that's what they want to eat. That's what they want to be told they can continue to eat. They don't want to be told that they can't eat cake. They don't want to be told that they can't eat ice cream. You know, they take their metformin and they feel like that's all I need. I'm going to be fine. It's protecting me. It's not protecting you. You're still going to develop diseases. But I really think the continuous glucose monitor is wasted on the type 2 diabetic because of what I just said. Here, I don't know who this is, but somebody said, how can you care if you don't sleep? They don't care because they sit up all night and eat and watch Jimmy Kimmel and The Late Show and all the TV shows on at night. That's why. They don't care. They rather stay up all night and eat and then sleep in the morning, and then wake up in the morning and start all over again. That's how they got where they were. They're not going to change it. So, but you know what? I don't care about type 2 diabetics because they have already made the decisions to become type 2 diabetic and stay that way because there's plenty of opportunities for them to stop it. I really think the continuous glucose monitor is for us. Why do I say us? Well, as we become older, there's a lot of things that start to push us into insulin resistance. I hate when people say, oh, I used to be able to eat that and it never bothered me. Yeah, I know. And you used to poop in diapers, but you don't do that anymore and you don't want to, do you? We're ever changing. And sometimes we're changing in ways that we don't like. It's not all good. That's part of aging. But the continuous glucose monitor gives us a chance to get ahead of the damage that elevated blood sugar can do over time. I was talking to a 30-year-old kid the other day. I call him a kid because he's 30. He's not a kid. He's a young man. His blood sugar is already creeping up. His blood sugar is like in the high 90s. He's in his 30s, right? He doesn't know he's diabetic yet, but he is. His body is producing so much insulin that it's keeping it down in the 90s. Once his pancreas starts to tank, it's going to be full-on diabetes. It's just a matter of time, maybe another decade. If he knew the foods that were compromising his health, well, then he could say, you know what, I can't eat that anymore. If he has willpower to say that to himself. I think most diabetics don't. They just want to keep. I have a friend who loves donuts. He's really big and fat. And it's sad. I feel bad. But he isn't going to change. He loves his donuts. He doesn't care. And he doesn't realize that all that grease and all that sugar and that flour is actually like, it's like the fast track to developing diseases. So if you have the willpower and the desire to stay healthy and live a long life, you have to know when things are going wrong right away. You have lights on your dashboard that tell you immediately when your oil pressure is low. Imagine if you didn't have that light. I had this happen to me when I was a kid. I had an old Triumph GT6, and the dashboard lights didn't work. And I only found out that I was low on oil when I was on the Southern State Parkway, and all of a sudden my engine started making this really bad noise and clanking, and the engine seized up. Your body can do that too if you don't pay attention to the signs. And if you don't get the signs, let's be honest, type 2 diabetes doesn't necessarily give you outward signs. But if you had something that you could see, wow, when I eat these foods here, my body doesn't respond well. My blood sugar goes through the roof. When I eat these foods here, they're fine. Then you can start to tease out the foods that don't work for you and be aware. But you don't know. The other thing is that a lot of people have sleep problems. They wake up in the middle of the night. They say, I wake up at 3 a.m. in the morning every morning like clockwork, and I'm wide awake. I don't understand what it is. 90% of the time, it's because they're becoming insulin resistant and blood sugar is dropping at night, and the brain's going, uh-oh, because don't forget, the brain is responsible for consuming 20% of the blood sugar in your body. This little thing is responsible for 20% of the blood sugar consumption. And so when sugar drops, the brain goes, wake up, dude, we're in trouble. And it wakes you up, turns on the adrenal glands, and you wake up and you feel wide awake. You're like, what's going on? I thought it was 6 a.m. in the morning. It's 2. 90% of the time, that's because blood sugar is dropping. Or you've had too much caffeine during the day. And caffeine works for about 12 hours, believe it or not. So if you had a big dose of caffeine at, 10 o'clock in the afternoon, then around 10, 11, 12 o'clock, it drops. It plummets. And the brain wakes you up. It's like, hey, blood sugar's dropping. It's almost always because of blood sugar. Almost always. You can see this if you wear a continuous glucose monitor. The continuous glucose monitor could potentially be the most. And let's not forget, I just did a show a few weeks ago that proves that the people who get COVID get the sickest from COVID, the worst symptoms, and the most likely to die from COVID are people who have the highest blood sugar levels. So knowing your blood sugar levels is really important. We have a sponsor called NutriSense. And what they do is they will provide you with a continuous glucose monitor and a free month consultation with a registered dietitian who will interpret the data from your continuous glucose monitor and say to you, these are the things that are causing you problems. This is what you should try. If you get this, I think, if I remember correctly, it's a subscription. So you only need to wear it for a couple months, the truth is. That's all you need. Probably a month or 2 maximum, because we eat the same foods all the time. All you need to do is wear it for a couple months and see what's working for you and what's not, and where you are on the scale of blood sugar management. And it will benefit you for the rest of your life. Now, I say you probably have to do this at least once every 5 years minimum, unless you're having problems and you want to see or you're changing your diet dramatically and you want to see. But it's like, a surface to ground missile, a surface to air missile is always correcting itself because the target is moving. If it's a jet. So your body is like that. The target's always moving. You're changing. It's dynamic. You're aging. I can tell you firsthand that iron accumulation will make you diabetic. The more iron you accumulate, the less sensitive insulin receptors are. Wouldn't it be nice to know ahead of time before you started developing the problems associated with this? Of course it would. It's a rhetorical question. Go to shrnetwork.biz/NutriSense, NutriSense. Use the code SHR30. Not only will you get $30 off, but you'll have access for 1 month to a registered dietitian who will help you interpret your results, fine-tune your diet, and keep you from seizing your engine because you don't have an engine light that tells you your oil is low. This is a great opportunity. I love it. This is my second go-around with the continuous glucose monitor because now I'm going to get my iron levels really, really far down, and I'm going to see. I'm going to see what happens if I become more insulin sensitive. And you should too. Even if you just do it one time to zero in right now where you are insulin sensitivity-wise and how your diet is working for you. And it's easy. You put it on the tricep. I don't have mine on yet because I'm not ready to wear it until I give another blood donation. You put it on your tricep. It's very small. And people think, oh, it's a needle. It's not. It's almost like a rubber straw that's cut on a bias. It just barely pricks your skin. You don't even feel it. You don't feel anything. Nothing. And I worked out with it. I remember one time I had my I was doing preacher curls, and it was pressed against my tricep. There was no pain, nothing. A lot of people are scared to wear it because they think it's a needle that goes into your skin. It's not a needle. It's not. It almost looks like a little straw, tiny, 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 and it's made out of almost like a plastic. It's flexible. If you go like that, it just moves. But you put it on. You have an app. The app talks to the device, and you could check your blood sugar any time of the day. My favorite thing is an hour after a meal to see what postprandial blood sugar elevation looks like. You'll see the spike, and then it comes down. If you have good glucose control, it won't go up high into the red, and then you know you're cruising. When it stays out of that red all day long and you sleep good and you feel better, you understand what foods work best for you. So check it out. Again, go to shrnetwork.biz/Nutrisense, NUTRISENSE. Use the code SHR30 for $30 off plus a free month access to a registered dietitian for consultations. This is not for diabetics, folks. This is for healthy people who want to stay healthy. It may have been invented for diabetics, but they really don't care. They really don't. If they did, they could have straightened it out years ago. When the first time the doctor says, hey, your blood sugar's up at 110. What does that mean, doc? Oh, I don't know. Yeah. All right, that's it for today. We're actually going to do the Blueprint Power Hour Thursday because we were preempted by technical difficulties on Tuesday. So you'll see us then. And then this week, Friday, Casual Friday. Elisa and I will be back on the air for Casual Friday. Hope you can join us live. And remember, muscle is metabolic currency. So get into the gym and make a deposit today. I'm going right after the show today to train because I couldn't train this morning. Okay, we'll see everybody tomorrow with more Superhuman Radio. Thanks for being here today.